Welcome to NFL Kickoff. I am your host, Tom Zwiller, joined by my co-host and enthusiastic Packers fan, Tony Nemetti.
Tony Nemetti.
He's going to go off when we talk about the 49ers shortly, but our job is to get you ready in the audience. All of you guys here supporting us, we're getting you ready for the upcoming weekend of NFL action. We're going to go over every single game, which, normally that sounds like a lot, but it's just going to be 4, so we get to go really in depth. And you know what? As I said, 4, I held up 3, so that's great. You can trust my analysis. We're going to go over all 4 games and give you our different takes because we do have different takes in this one, I think, or at least a little bit of different analysis, and pick every game on the slate, give you the spreads, the over-under, how we feel about everything. But first, a quick word from our sponsors, our friends at DraftKings. NFL Kickoff is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. With only 7 games and 8 teams left, now is the time to get in on the betting action. There's not a lot of games left, so football's going to be over before we know it, which feels crazy. We have a lot of fun games this weekend. My personal favorite is Bills at Chiefs. Tony, I know you're probably excited about Packers 49ers the most. So bet on your favorite game with our friends at DraftKings. Check out the link in the description to get a deposit match up to $1,000 through DraftKings and the Sports 2.0 network. So, guys, we did it. We had a fun Wildcard Weekend last week. Or was it fun, actually? There was only like 1.5 good games.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that number, 1.5?
1.5, maybe even 1.25.
Yeah, 1.25. I kind of like that. So, obviously, we had Steelers at Chiefs, which is a bit of a blowout bummer. We had Bills at Patriots, one that I thought might be like the game of the weekend. That was also a blowout bummer. We had Bengals and Raiders, which is good. I think it was probably the best game of the weekend for sure. And we had Bucs Eagles, another blowout. Cowboys 49ers, which was trending blowout. So I actually went over to Nickelodeon to get the more fun viewing experience because if I'm going to get bored watching a game, I'm going to watch it with slime. And then they made it a close one at the end. That was controversial. We'll get into it in a little bit. And then we have Rams Cardinals, another bummer blowout. A Monday Night Football blowout game is never fun because it's the only one on. So there's not a lot you can do with that. But let's go over our individual reactions looking at some of these games. So Steelers Chiefs. Obviously a blowout, but it was also Big Ben's last game. So how did you feel watching that one, Tony?
I thought this game was pretty much about how we both expected it to be when we did our analysis of it last week. The Chiefs ran over the Steelers, ended Big Ben's career on a pretty bad loss. Mahomes really showed up. 5 touchdown, 400-yard performance. The game was honestly pretty close until late into the second quarter. That was surprising to me. But other than that, it wasn't really anything too interesting. Neither team scored a single point in the first quarter. That was a little strange. I definitely did not expect that. But the Chiefs did what the Chiefs do, and they really picked it up second, third, fourth quarter and just racked up the points.
No, yeah, I was really surprised when the Steelers scored first, I believe, off of an interception of Patrick Mahomes, or was it? It was a defensive touchdown, I think.
It was something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a defensive touchdown that opened the game. I was like, hey, this is the formula we talked about. We said that the Steelers are going to have to rely on their defense because their offense is probably not going to get the job done. And the defense didn't get the job done. No. I mean, this is what happens when you lose 42-21. It's a clear mismatch. And I think that, the Steelers were, in my estimation, the worst team to make the playoffs. And that's counting the Eagles over on the other side of the bracket or the other 7. I think the Chiefs even ran out of fireworks. And so I want to ask you this. If your opponent runs out of celebratory fireworks, is that more embarrassing than getting blown out? Is like, you got blown out so badly, our own organization didn't think that we'd score this much.
I think it's more, it's embarrassing that they ran out of fireworks. It's more embarrassing that they made a graphic and threw it up on the big mega board over the entire stadium for all to see. That was painful to watch. Big Ben's last game, that's just hard. Disrespectful. But hey, if you're going to lose that bad, you're going to take it.
That's what they did against the Texans, right? Like in the game where they were down, 21-0 or something, or 21-3, and they came back. They ran out of fireworks because the Chiefs put up 50 points.
Yep.
Yeah, they seem to do that a lot. And if the playoffs are going to continue to break right for the Chiefs, they're going to need to run out of fireworks a little bit more often. Let's go to Bills at the Patriots. This one, another huge bummer. And it was like one that felt like a bummer kind of ending to the AFC East, and the race looks so close all season. The end result is 47 Bills, 17 Patriots. It's just not close. Josh Allen played incredibly. He had more touchdowns than he did incompletions, which is an incredibly impressive stat. And meanwhile, Mac Jones did not look great. I can't really blame him. Great first rookie season, made the playoffs, just got throttled. What's your takeaway from this? Because my takeaway from this is that maybe the AFC East is not as close a race as we thought it was at some points in the season.
Well, I got to say, that stat from Josh Allen's incredibly impressive. The closest stat that I have football related to that is one time on Madden, I had more interceptions than completions. So, kind of the opposite. That's a pretty bad stat, but equally impressive in some cases. I
Is
do
it?
think that this game was a surprise, and not because of necessarily who won. I know I picked the Patriots in my
Hmm.
analyzation of it last week. Now, after that, I talked with Tom kind of off the show. And one of the things I said was, if the Patriots win, I think it'll be close. If the Bills win, I think it'll be close. No matter who wins, it's not going to be a blowout. Boy, was I wrong. Josh Allen had a career day. I mean, not only did he have more touchdowns than incompletions, he did it against the top 3 defense in the league, which is so beyond impressive. Usually it's against like, a bottom 5 defense, and it's like, oh, you can kind of take it with a grain of salt because I could go
Yeah.
out there and throw a couple touchdowns on him. But the Patriots are exposed really badly, no way around it. They looked lost. They couldn't really do anything to stop this explosive Bills offense. It's not something that I expected out of a Bill Belichick-led Patriots, but I just think that at a certain point, as great as that coaching staff is, and as well conditioned as that team is, I do think that at a certain point, when you get into these playoffs, the talent gap does start to show a little bit more. And I do think that the Bills just certainly have way more raw talent right now than the Patriots have, even though the Patriots have been able to kind of compensate with being very well maintained and very well coached throughout the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. I did not have this one being a blowout, and I did pick the Bills, and I
Mhm.
said I think that Patriots cover because the spread was 4.5 when the game kicked off, and I said it'll be about a field goal of difference because that's how good these two teams were,
Mhm.
and it just wasn't. I think that one, if you're looking at Mac Jones, great rookie season, right?
Oh yeah.
He went 24 of 38 in the game for about 230 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, really good with 2 interceptions, and arguably I think those touchdowns kind of came in garbage time. At least the second one came in the right at the end of the fourth quarter, so I'm willing to call that one some garbage time. But I think that when I wrote an article about the Patriots, kind of talking about what moves they need to make in the offseason, priority number one should be a wide receiver. Would you agree with that?
I do think so. I think that they have at best a couple wide receiver 2s right now. They do not have a wide
Yeah.
receiver 1, arguably not even many wide receiver 2s. They have a lot of wide receiver 3s on most teams.
Yeah, no, I think that really is the difference maker, right? Is you kind of look at Buffalo and they have a plethora of weapons at the wide receiver position, and then New England, arguably, as somebody who drafted Jacoby Myers in free
Mhm.
agency, they don't have a plethora of weapons, not by any means.
No.
So that should be concern number one, I think, because the Patriots have struggled with drafting good wide receivers, I think, over the reign of Belichick. So I think that's something that they will have to look really closely at in the offseason.
Yeah, and this is a heavy wide receiver free agent market this year.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think they'll get somebody. I really do. I think that
Mhm.
they have to get someone to kind of help Matt continue to progress.
Yeah, kind of like the Randy Moss to the Tom Brady back in, what was that?
Exactly.
05, 06?
Early in the 2000s.
Yeah,
I mean,
early
that obviously
2000s.
helped Brady
Oh
immensely.
yeah.
All right, so let's hop on to the next one, which was arguably the best one. I actually don't think it's arguable. I think it was the best one. Raiders Bengals. The Bengals came away with it 26-19. There was a little bit of a controversial issue with a whistle being blown early into a play that people think affected the touchdown. Personally, I think that was a touchdown regardless of the whistle. I think
Oh yeah.
Burrow put that ball beautifully where it needed to go, and that no defender looked like they were going to get that, even regardless of the whistle. So
Mhm.
an exciting season for the Bengals. They get their first playoff win, and so people finally got to some human somewhere sent the first text about a Bengals playoff victory in human history on Saturday, January 15th. So that was exciting. We got to make a little bit of history there. And on the flip side, Raiders, they finished 10-7. They obviously got the tough loss on the road. But considering all they've had to overcome this season, I actually think that they should be proud of the fact that they just made the playoffs as the 5 seed, because you go through the head coach getting fired, a teammate going to jail for a DUI that cost someone else their life. Like, that's a traumatic season, I think, for any organization. And the fact that they made the playoffs, one, tells me that they found a head coach. I think a little bit he was able to kind of right the ship. But two, that the Raiders are a good team, and I expect to see them in playoff contention again next year.
Absolutely. I do think I want to give a little shout out, as the Pat McAfee show would say, to the Raiders interim head coach. He actually spent all night after that win
Writing
or after
letters.
that loss, writing handwritten letters to each and every player, thanking them for their hard work throughout this incredibly difficult season. That is an amazing thing to do as a head coach. That's a lot of players to be writing for. I mean, it really probably did take him all night, depending on how long they are. Even if they were, a sentence each, that's still probably 4 or 5 hours right after a playoff loss. Like, you're devastated just as much as your players are. You're a part of that team as well. So I think that was an amazing thing to do for him, and I think it could be a kind of a turnaround for the franchise, kind of a, like you said, right the ship kind of guy. So I kind of hope they stick with him. I do think that he could be a good thing for this team. They should be incredibly proud that they make the playoffs. This was an insane season for them. That being said, I am going to stick by my earlier claim that I do think this is the worst team that made the playoffs.
But okay, so I do want to get into this because I saw it on the show notes and I was a little confused. Look, we saw the Raiders play the Bengals incredibly closely, and we saw the Steelers get just slaughtered by the Chiefs. The Bengals beat the Chiefs. Not that holds up every single time they play. And I just don't see the argument now that you know that the Raiders were incredibly close to the Bengals. I believe they had a chance to tie the game late in the fourth quarter. I don't know how you see this as the worst team to make the playoffs.
Well, that was way earlier in the season. Every team is different now from where they were. At one point, the Chiefs were like the worst team in their own division. Now they are an amazing team that's looking to make the Super Bowl potentially once again.
No,
so
the Bengals beat the Chiefs in week 17 of 18?
Well, were they resting people or something? This is also the craziest season we've seen in a while. Like, there's just so many upsets. I mean, the Jags beat the Colts. That doesn't mean that the Jags are better.
No, but if the Raiders had gotten blown out by the Bengals, I could see the argument.
Oh, that was when Jamar had his career day.
No, I'm talking about in this game. If the Raiders got blown out, I could see a case for it. Mm-hmm. The Steelers got handled. I just don't see the argument for it at all.
Well, okay, Steelers versus Chiefs. Hold on, let me pull up the official scores.
Yeah, I had them. It's 42-21 Steelers versus Chiefs, and then it was 26-19 Raiders and Bengals.
Okay, well, I think the Chiefs are a way better team than the Bengals overall. Like, unless Jamar has a career day. Okay, I'll give you that. Jamar had an insane, he had almost 300 yards by himself and 3 touchdowns. How often does that actually happen? And they still only beat him by 3. So I think, fine, if Jamar has a standard day, the Chiefs win that most of the time. I think the Steelers put up more points against a significantly better team than the Raiders put up against the Bengals. Yes, it was only by 2.
Yeah, but we've talked about the Chiefs' defense not being good for large parts of the season.
Large parts early in the season. That doesn't matter now. I think this Chiefs team is completely different from when we were talking about at the beginning of the season. They have turned the ship around tremendously. I think that this Chiefs team is back to what they were. If we look on lineups, 2021, 2022 overall defense, Chiefs are 8th. They started off at like dead last, so to get back to 8th is tremendous. They're better than the Niners.
Yeah, by DVOA though, that it tells a little bit of a different story. DVOA, the Chiefs defense is 24th.
I mean,
it would explain why the Steelers offense could put up points if they're playing the 24th defense, whereas Cincinnati is significantly better on that side of not significantly better, but they are better on that side of the ball than the Chiefs are.
Well, let's see. Bengals are rough in the pass game. They're pretty good in the run game, and they're decent pretty much everywhere else. The Chiefs are a little bit better in the pass game, actually significantly better in the pass game by a couple different metrics, and they're pretty decent against the run. So they are overall better. Kansas City Chiefs, 4th in points allowed, 5th in turnovers generated.
Yeah, but DVOA measures it a little bit differently than lineups does because DVOA takes into account the quality of opponent. So, it's looking at it a little bit differently.
That is true, but at a certain point with all these stats, like the difference between the Chiefs being at 8 and the Bengals being at 17, like that's not tremendously close. And with how many stats that lineups uses, I still trust that ranking.
If you look at DVOA, Football Outsiders, by the way, obviously, a huge shout out to them because I love looking at the DVOAs. If you look at DVOA, the Raiders are 21st, and then the Steelers are 24th in DVOA. So, and that's overall. So I just, if you want to say that the Raiders are a bad playoff team, fine, I'll walk that with you. I don't think they're a great playoff team. I much rather would have seen the Chargers or the Colts make the playoffs as opposed to the Raiders. But the Raiders still made it, and their DVOA is better than that of the Steelers.
By what, 3 points or whatever? Is it by
There
is it a significant amount, or I guess they're 3 rankings higher?
are 3 rankings higher. What that ends up amounting to, let me find that tab again. What that ends up amounting to is not a huge difference, I guess it's fair to say, but it is a couple of percentage points. So Pittsburgh is -10, whereas Vegas is -5. So
I also think that this falls it falls so much on Derek Carr just being Derek Carr, and we saw that. I think we would both agree that the Bengals have their weakness by a mile is their pass defense, right?
Yeah, 100%. They're pretty horrible.
Derek Carr had a 53% completion percentage, a touchdown interception. Yes, he had 310 yards, but that'll happen when you throw, it's like 50 some odd attempts, almost 60. 54 attempts. So, I mean, he had a passer rating of 69.2. He's thrown the most interceptions than he has ever thrown in this season, in a single season. 14. That's more than any other season he's had. This is one of his lower touchdown seasons, 23. Yes, he has a whole lot of yards, but I don't care about yards if you don't do anything with them.
Yeah, but look at the result. I don't think it's crazy to say, if you could lose in the playoffs 19-26 or have your opponents run out of fireworks 21-42, I think I know which team I would rather be on in that loss.
Well, yeah, but they also played a significantly worse team in the Bengals on a normal day. Yes, again, Jamar Chase goes for 300 yards by himself almost. Sure, that'll happen, and then you're probably going to win that game no matter who you play. That is kind of inevitable. But I think if you flip this and you put Raiders against the Chiefs and you put Steelers against the Bengals, I don't think you get that different of a result on either one. Yes, you can argue that, maybe the Steelers are worse by a slight margin. Maybe the Raiders are worse by a slight margin. They're both bad. I think we can agree on that. It's just a matter of who's worse. I don't think that this is much different if you flip these teams as to the result of the outcome.
I honestly do. I think that we've seen the Raiders. I think I would bet that the Raiders would perform a little bit better than the Steelers.
I don't know. I think these teams are both. I would love to see what happens if you put these teams against each other.
That we did. The Raiders beat the Steelers.
Well, yeah. When was that, though?
Me too.
Raiders versus Steelers. Yeah, that was forever ago. That does not count.
It should count as a data point if we're analyzing who's better.
Yeah, but we have also seen that every single team now is different from every single team then.
I understand, but the Raiders
one got destroyed by the Saints. You put them against the Saints now, that's a cakewalk.
The Raiders, to make the playoffs, had to beat the Browns, the Broncos, the Colts, and the Chargers. This is 4 games in a row. The Steelers literally backed into the playoffs courtesy of the Raiders.
That is true. They definitely had the easier schedule.
Yeah, the Steelers, I think, are just the worst overall team because, one, they don't make the playoffs if the Raiders don't help them make the playoffs. And 2, the Raiders have the head-to-head win, and 3, at least DVOA ranks them significantly higher, I would say, than the Steelers.
I think both teams are bad.
If
you want to argue one's worse than the other, I still disagree. I still think the Raiders are the worst team overall. But both teams are bad. As long as we can agree on that,
yeah, they were both first-round outs.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the NFC side of the bracket. So we have Eagles-Bucks. Obviously, that was a little bit of a controversial one here on kickoff. Tony had the Eagles winning in that one. I picked the Buccaneers, and I felt pretty good about that one. The Eagles lost 15-31 because a huge part of Tony's analysis was that there would be rain. And Tony, was there rain?
No, it was the most beautiful game I've ever watched. It was, I don't know who the weather people are in Tampa, but you might need to find some new ones because that was abhorrent. There was not one drop of water in that entire stadium. It was insane. There was wind gusts. I'll give you that. I did see they had to, at one point they had to hold the kickoff. So there was some wind. You got that right. But there wasn't as much wind as you said there'd be.
Yeah, no, I'm taking my victory lap on that one, and I have to do absolutely nothing else. Such an easy prediction just to take the favorite. It feels incredibly lazy, but I like being.
I mean,
right.
that was the entire reason I took the Eagles there. As soon as I flipped over to that game and saw sunshine and rainbows, I was like, well, Tom won.
Yeah, no, it was as soon as I saw that, I was doing a little victory lap in my apartment.
So bad.
All right, let's move on to the next one, which is the 0.25 of a game that was good.
Yep.
The 49ers led 23-7 going into the fourth quarter, and the Cowboys were like, hey, we're going to come back on. We're going to start playing actual football. And they put up 10 points and had a chance to win with, I believe, 2 minutes and 3 timeouts left and went 3 and out. punted it to the 49ers. Their defense did great, forced a stop, gave them the ball back with a little over a minute, maybe 70 seconds. And the Cowboys did pretty well. They actually got the ball to the 40-yard line. But then they proceeded to what might be run the dumbest play in the history of the playoffs, which is run a QB draw with 14 seconds left and no timeouts and attempt to spike the ball. And they killed their own season. Like, the 49ers advanced, honestly, because of pure dumb luck. If the Cowboys have a timeout or they spike the ball, we could totally be looking at a different result. But they did the dumb thing, and the dumb thing cost them the season.
This is why it used to be a joke of Aaron Rodgers' most impressive stat is that he won Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy. Now you see what he had to deal with, like this outdated knowledge of football that, old Pittsburgh Mike has. It just doesn't work anymore. And I do want to say in the press conference afterwards, he said, I would make that call again. I do think that was the right call. And I don't disagree with him. I don't.
I do. I disagree with the draw.
I think it's I don't think it's the best call in the world. Only because, either way, like, let's say you don't run that draw. You're in Hail Mary territory. Let's say you run that draw correctly. You're still in Hail Mary territory. It doesn't really change all that much. So I don't really get the point of it. I think that it mostly falls on Dak, though. Dak ran too far. And he also didn't hand the ball to the ref. So, yes, it's not the greatest call in the world. It's not a terrible call, I don't think, if executed properly. If it's executed properly and they get that ball off and there's even 1 second left, I don't think we're talking about this really. Even if they throw that Hail Mary and nothing really happens, I don't think we talk about this quite as much.
Oh, for sure, but it's because of how dumb it was. Like, I think is it a meme, or was it someone online saying that like every 12-year-old has better clock management skills than Mike McCarthy because of Madden? Like, that's so true. As soon as I saw them run, I was like, why? You were doing so well getting chunk plays and just going to the sideline. Like, just do that. Like, I
they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that again because
they were doing it.
Yeah, they were doing it because they were guarding the middle of the field. And on that last play, they split out to the outside, which is why he ran the draw up the middle. He just ran too far.
I'm okay trying, like you said. Okay, so let's say we're back in that situation, right? They've got 14 seconds left, no timeouts. I would rather take a pass attempt and try a completion. And, if I get an incompletion, the clock stops and I then have another chance versus run a draw. And odds are pretty good I don't have another chance.
I would rather do that as well. I don't think it was the right call, but I don't think it's as bad of a call as people are making it out to be. I think the execution was worse than the call.
I mean, I guess the interesting thing is that they actually practiced that in their practices. And I would be fascinated to know, like, when they practice that next season, if they're going to count the referee and include him in their practice.
I think that if they were to go from like outside of Dak's range to now in field goal range, if that's why you're running the draw, I'm totally okay with it. Yeah. I think that's fine because at that point, it's pretty much the same as a completion in the middle of the field, which I can live with that. Mm-hmm. But because you're going from Hail Mary range to Hail Mary range, it doesn't really matter what. Like, it's not that he's an NFL quarterback. He can make the throw from 30 yards. He can make it from 40 yards. I don't really understand why they made that call. I think it was not the best call in the world, but I do blame the execution more. And for all the Cowboys fans out there, the refs didn't screw you. This is not on the ref. This is not the ref's fault. The ref was exactly where he needed to be. It's an NFL rule that he has to be back to the left of the quarterback. He's also a ref. He's not a player. You can't expect him to run a 3.240. So, like, at a certain point, these guys are a lot older than any player on the field. Even Brady. All these guys are older than even Brady is, and we can see how fast he is. So, this is not on the ref at all. I watched, for those of you that watch YouTube, I watched Tim the Tatman. Tim the Tatman is a huge Cowboys fan. He made some comments in the game, and he goes, 55R, I think, was the ref. He said, 55R had his mortgage bet on this game. He didn't want the Cowboys to win. And I was like, Tim, this is not on the refs. This is on Dak. You never give the ball to your center. That is a common rule that even fans know, which players are definitely going to supposed to know if a fan knows.
It was a horrible rule.
The ref has to spot the ball.
Misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a terrible call. I mean, this is just like the Chase Claypool thing from whenever that one. Whenever that was.
Back in the Vikings game.
You give the ball to the ref. You let him get everything set, and you get out of his way. Because I know we saw when the ref finally got up there, again, this guy's not the greatest athlete
Just
in the
like
world.
touch the ball. Like that's literally it. The requirement is that he like touched the ball. He moved
Well,
it
I
back
will
to half an
I
inch,
I will
maybe.
say that he did move it like 3 times. So there was that, but he has to spot it properly because as we saw, like not even 2 minutes prior, the
Inches
spot
matter.
was literally like they were short by that much. Like it
Mm-hmm.
completely affects the game how just an inch is.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like a game of inches. It really is. But yeah, I mean that's a bummer too, right? I thought that Cowboys Packers would be the best game of the playoffs if we
Yeah.
could get it to that place, and we
Mhm.
obviously didn't and won't. So that is a huge bummer. But I think the 49ers game is going to be a very interesting game against the Packers.
Yeah. And I
Let's
do
move
want
on.
to say before we
Okay.
move on, I am very disappointed in Dak for what he said about encouraging fans to throw things at the refs.
Oh,
You
that was
never do that.
horrible. I'm
The
glad he got fined.
The league
I'm
only fined him
incredibly glad.
$25,000. That's like if you find me a nickel. So I
I
do
have
think that he should have got hit harder for that.
I have a feeling that that's probably the maximum that he can get fined for
Well, I saw they
a
fined
presser
Bruce
conference.
Arians for smacking his own player in the back of the helmet, which I fully expect a coach to do. I'm completely comfortable with that. I don't think he should have been fined for that at all. If you're an idiot, you're going to get slapped like an idiot. I think that's
I
totally fine.
I could care less about that. What
Yeah.
I think Dak said encouraging that because the Cowboys fans were raining down garbage on the
Mhm.
officials. Like that's a problem. We
Yeah.
back when the NBA started up, we had a problem with players getting spat on and getting things thrown at them and hurled insults. And we need to get rid of that. Get rid of that behavior. It's toxic. That ruins sports. It's not what
Yeah.
sports is about. I know you're disappointed. Like I'd be disappointed if the Panthers lost in that fashion. I'm not blaming the refs in that spot. And I would like to hope that Panthers fans would behave with a little
Yeah.
bit more class.
I mean, they just had to do their job. In the Bengals game, like we said, with the whistle being blown, that one is on the refs. And I do think that by rule, that touchdown should have been taken off the board.
It should
But
have.
realistically, in time, that whistle did not affect that play. It just didn't. Like I know the players are going to say they're going to try to take every inch they can get, and they're going to say, "Oh, will I quit playing because I heard the whistle?" It was like throw, whistle catch. It was that fast. There's no way you stopped playing, and even if you did, nobody was close enough to get that guy. So I don't think it actually affected the play, but by rule, it should have been taken off the board.
The thing I feel bad for is I feel bad for the refs because I think either Goodell or the NFL came out and said, "Yeah, you're not going to see them in the playoffs for a while."
Yeah.
So that crew
Which
has
is
just
good.
disappeared.
I mean,
No, it's good that they held them
we
accountable.
need to be better about I know the Cowboys game, that's not on the refs. But in general, we need to be better about the refs making the proper calls because we've seen it's like the past 6 or 7 years in a row. There's always one game that the ref makes one call and it's potentially game changing. Like history could be completely different right now if the refs had 100% made the right calls every time. Yeah.
That's the best one I can think of.
Yeah.
No, the refs need to be full-time employees and spend the off-season in a similar way that coaches and players do, like looking at film and trying to become a little bit better. That's been an opinion I've had for a while.
Yeah,
Let's
because a
move
lot of
on
these
to
guys are like lawyers or something like that, or doctors or whatever, and this is like their part-time thing. Like they're just kind of out there, but they have other jobs. They just need to be full-time employees. I agree.
The NFL has the money to make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Cardinals at Rams. It's the last game. It was Monday Night Football. It was a 34-11 rout for the Rams. It's kind of what we've been expecting all year, and it was nice to see it finally happen. Stafford had a really good night. He had 17 pass attempts, had 13 completions, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And the Cardinals, they just haven't looked right, honestly, since they lost to the Packers and Kyler Murray got injured in that game, and he's been kind of in and out of the team. I don't know what. Like Tony, like you like to say, the hottest team is never the team that actually sticks around and wins it out because they got too hot almost at the wrong time.
Yep.
That's definitely what happened with the Cardinals. They started 7-0 and they're going to end the season 11-7. I can't imagine being 7-0 and after that you only win 4 more games.
Yeah, I mean this is what we've been saying all year, right? Like there's always, it seems like every single year there's one random team that nobody expects that starts off and is like the last undefeated team or like the second to last undefeated team. They're just doing phenomenal in the start. That team never, ever wins it all. Unless you have your slump in the middle and you can kind of pick it up at the end. But that rarely happens, if ever. There's always the team that goes 6-0, 7-0, and everybody's all hyped about it. And then they finish off mediocre. They might limp into the playoffs. And that's why I never really backed off my Rams to win the division
West.
take. Yeah, the West take. I never thought the Cardinals would really do it. just because for this reason, 6-0, like 5-0, 6-0, 7-0. How long can you keep this up for? And like we saw with the Packers, it only really takes one loss for the team to kind of unravel a little bit, and that could be just enough for more teams to kind of scoot in. One loss becomes two, two losses becomes three, and then you just have a snowball effect. And like we see here, that team never makes it.
Yeah, no, I mean, like look at 2019. You have the Ravens who went 14-2 and they got bounced by the Titans really early. You have the Patriots who I think were 8-0 at one point and fell off and lost to the Titans. Like it's a weird trend, but it definitely kind of seems to hold true at least a little bit. I do think that the Cardinals, you're looking at Kyler Murray. He almost had a Russell Wilson-esque season where he starts off really hot and then fell off. I think more it's because Murray got injured. Than anything else, and just he struggled to recover and isn't the same dynamic player. And then DeAndre Hopkins getting injured, that really just tanks the offense. I think that the only way the air raid offense can work is if you have someone dynamic like DeAndre Hopkins. And if you don't have them, that's kind of it. I don't think they have a really good wide receiver after Hopkins who's nearly as good, because he's one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league. So
yeah,
the offense just doesn't function without him. So I think that's a testament to the fact that the air raid maybe it won't work in the NFL. We've seen it have its peaks, but it has some really low lows.
Yeah, because Kyler missed like an odd amount of time, like every single week. I thought we saw him kind of hobbling around in the final series of that Packers game, and we thought, okay, we know he's a little bit injured, and then he ended up missing 4 or 5 weeks. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was
4.
I think it was 4 weeks.
Here, let me find it, because Colt McCoy, I know he played, I think it was the 49ers, then the Panthers, then Seattle, then the 49ers again.
Yeah. And he ended up missing all of those games, which I thought was really odd because, he finished out the Packers game. So I thought, oh, okay, the injury must not be that bad if he can finish out a series. But then he ended up missing out on 4 weeks. He finished the season with 3,700 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Now, yes, if he plays those 4 weeks, he definitely cracks the 4,000-yard mark. He definitely has more touchdowns, but he likely has more interceptions as well. And I don't know if he holds that 69% completion percentage going. So I think that, yes, Kyler is a good quarterback. I don't think Kyler's a great quarterback, though. I think he's okay.
He's what now, in his 3rd season?
I believe so.
I think that he's still got some room to grow. I think he can still grow.
Yeah, he definitely has room to grow, and I definitely don't think that he's a bad quarterback. I think that he's going to have a good career. I just don't think he's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, so Colt McCoy, he played in 4 games this season. Well, he played in more than 4 games this season, but he started in 3 and had some significant time against the Lions in that weird 30-12 loss. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. If you lose to the Lions, like, you're probably losing in the playoffs. Like, if you lose to the Lions when you're trying. But he beat the 49ers in a really weird one, 31-17, lost to the Panthers 34-10, and then beat Seattle 23-13. So, the point is, Kyler Murray did miss some significant time. That's,
yeah. And that definitely does affect the team. Like, 100%, you can't say that, like, oh, this team would be just as good with or without him. Like, no, absolutely not. They're going to be better with him than Colt McCoy. I think we can all see that. But at the same time, this is the same year where the Titans were the most injured team in the league, and they're the 1 seed. So at a certain point, every team is going through injury in some way or another. They really only lost Kyler, DeAndre, and like JJ as their big name guys that they lost out on. Like, the Titans lost everybody. The Packers were down pretty bad. Cowboys were hurt for a good portion of the season. Like, all these great teams played and stayed pretty great. Bucks have been hurt late in the season, but they just pulled out a big win. Like, the great teams can do it with injury. That's why I kind of think the Cardinals are a fraud, because you lose 1 or 2 guys, which are going to happen. It's a very, contact league, obviously. So guys are going to get hurt at points through the season. If you lose 1 or 2 guys and you fall apart from 7-0 to 11-7, you're not a great team.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the offseason, because people are calling for Cliff Kingsbury's job, which is a little bit, I think, soon. I think the fact that the Cardinals are actually a good team. Like, I mean, realistically, let's say Kyler doesn't get injured and they beat the Panthers. Like, let's pick the Panthers in that string where Colt McCoy played and had the weird loss. If they beat the Panthers, like, I think they could have potentially won the NFC West. So they're a game away from winning the NFC West. I think it's a little bit too much to call for his job.
Yeah, I think that's quite extreme.
Hot seat, sure, you can be on the hot seat, but I think his job is a bit much. Yeah. All right, let's hop on over to best, worst, and biggest surprise. So, Tony, what was your best pick from last week's show?
My best one, I'm just gonna go Rams Cardinals, just because we've kind of been saying all year that the Cardinals are gonna choke at a big time, and here we are. I wasn't surprised. I was really happy to see Stafford finally have a good game at the right time. Yes, he didn't
First
throw a
playoff
whole
win.
lot. Yeah, first playoff win of his career. Congratulations, Stafford. Uh, he didn't throw an interception, which that was like the big thing. Everybody was thinking if he throws picks against this team, they could lose this game. He kept
Yeah.
it very clean, 2 touchdowns. A lot of completions based on how his attempts were. He had a lot of completions, a good amount of yards based on how many attempts he had. So I think it was a very complete game for him. And I do think that the only thing that I wasn't 100% happy with the Rams, which I can kind of see the argument for why they didn't, was just Stafford was having himself a day. Let him go a little bit. Give him 25 pass attempts instead of just 17. That's in today's league. 17 is incredibly low.
Just yeah, I know we talked about this a little bit off air, but just win the game, right? Like I'm okay with the fact that he didn't get 100.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just nitpicking a win, which is stupid. I know that, but as a huge fan of Stafford, which I know we both are, I would have liked to see him kind of in that first win really blow up the stat sheet.
As someone, I don't know if I'd be a self-described big fan of Stafford. I guess I am. I saw him play in person, and he was a pretty dang good quarterback. It was my only NFL game that I've ever gone to in person. But I picked the Zelo model picked the Rams to win the Super Bowl, so I am very invested in this playoff run for the Rams.
Oh yeah.
I was very excited about that performance. It looked like the Rams were back kind of after they got a weird loss against the 49ers in overtime that still let them win the division crown. Okay, so let's transition over to my best pick. My best pick was your worst pick, which was Tampa Bay Eagles.
Yeah.
I don't need to say anymore. I really don't need to say anything else. I guess all I could say is that it was an easy pick. And Tony, as I'm winning our bracket challenge, you just got to take the easy ones, man.
If the meteorologist down there were right, I still like that pick. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't dislike it. Even knowing the result, I stand by it. If it's rainy and if it's super windy, and that team has to run, and Jalen Hurts doesn't throw a whole lot, he doesn't throw those 2 interceptions. That's game changing right there. If you have 2 picks that you're just not throwing, and you're a great run team, you could probably turn those into positive plays. I still stand by that pick if the weather is how they said it would be. I checked it the day before, and it said it was supposed to be like almost thunderstorm level rain and a lot of wind. So I was like, oh, okay. I'm actually pretty confident in this one. This could be another great pick on my end from this year. No, turns out absolutely not. The meteorologists were completely wrong, and it screwed me over.
Happens to the best of us.
It happens.
My only loss is the only one that I had because I went 5-1 on the weekend. It was 49ers at Cowboys, and I don't even feel like it was a loss because I said that like if there was an upset to happen, it would be 49ers Cowboys.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty good about that. Dallas got in their own way with penalties. I think that if Dallas has even half the penalties, they probably win that game.
Yeah.
Let's go to biggest surprise from the weekend. I'm assuming I kind of think that you pick the Patriots Bills game just because you had the Patriots winning it in a close fashion. Who'd you end up picking?
I picked Bengals Raiders.
Interesting.
And here's why. Because I thought it was going to be a blowout. I really did. I still stand by the Raiders being potentially the worst playoff team. And I just think the Bengals underperformed, which is odd to say in their first playoff win. I just expected more from this team. I think that, Burrow had a good day. I don't want to say that, Burrow's not doing what he needs to do. He threw like 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, I think. He had a very clean day. I don't think that there is anything wrong with his performance. But I do think that if you keep it within 1 score of potentially, at best, a bottom 3 playoff team, I think we can both agree on that.
Yes. I'll go with that.
If we can agree that they're a bottom 3 playoff team and you beat them by a touchdown, it could be really difficult, really fast to get much farther, especially when you are now playing the Chiefs. So I do think that was a little bit of a surprise because I expected fireworks. But, a win's a win. So we'll see. Maybe Jamar and Burrow have another career day against the Chiefs and they pull it out again. Who knows? Against, who they play? Did they play Titans?
Yeah, they played the Titans.
They played the Titans. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my biggest surprise is going to be New England and Buffalo, just because, like I said, the way in which Buffalo won was just crazy. And it's going to make me really question if New England is as close to Buffalo as I thought they were at some points in the season. I thought that New England was better than Buffalo a couple points this season, and here we are knowing, with the result in hand, it changes kind of how I view the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
Patriots, I mean, there was one point where they had the number 1 seed, and it looked like Bill Belichick had mastered everything, and then they got their first round bounce. So it was a big, I guess, revealing game.
Oh yeah, I am still surprised that it happened as bad as it did.
It went the way it went.
Yeah, because if they lose, like let's say the Patriots lose 21-17 to the Bills, I would come on this show and I would say I picked wrong, but at the end of the day, I thought it would be close no matter what. But to be this bad, that's that's pretty bad.
For sure. Yeah, all right, let's hop on over to the divisional pick'em. But I actually, before we do this, I want to pull up the bracket because you had bottom 3 teams. I'm really interested. I kind of want to know, are we counting the Eagles as the third worst team?
Yes.
Okay, so Eagles, Steelers,
Raiders. I think are the 3 worst.
Interesting. Okay.
It depends on your order. At that point, it just becomes subjective. But I think, objectively, I think we can all agree Steelers, Raiders, Eagles are probably the 3 worst playoff teams.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, so let's go to the good playoff teams that actually were able to advance. The first one is Cincinnati at Tennessee. According to DraftKings Sportsbook, the Bengals are a 3.5 underdog, and the over-under is 47.5. I'm going to go with the Titans on this one. I think that the Titans offense is going to exploit the Bengals passing defense, which Tony and I have said kind of all season that it's a huge glaring hole. By DVOA, the Bengals rank 24th against the pass. So I think Derrick Henry is expected to return for this one. He's, I believe, cleared a couple of protocols and should be available. And I think that he's going to help almost set up the pass because the Bengals are going to be probably a little bit terrified of the return of a completely rested and healthy King Henry. And the Titans defense actually ranks 11th against the pass and 14th against the run. So I think that they're going to perform better than the Raiders, who defensively were 21st by DVOA. Mm-hmm. Tennessee does have a below average passing and rushing offense because I think of the injury, right? Like it's so hard to account for. So I think they're probably a little bit better than those numbers. So I'm expecting it to be the Titans, but a close one. I do have the Titans beating the spread though.
Yeah, I kind of have to go with you there. I don't think there's a world where the Bengals win this one. And I do think that, there's always the possibility of Burrow having a pop-off day, Jamar Chase, and that honestly elite wide receiver core the Bengals have having an amazing day. But at the end of the day, you got Derrick Henry coming back on fresh legs, which should be devastating. And you have Julio and A.J. Brown also playing against, the weaker Bengals secondary again. So I think the Titans offense is going to run this field. Unless, like I said, Burrow and Jamar have another career day, I don't think that the Bengals can offensively just keep up. Even if this is a barn burner, both defenses are terrible. At a certain point, it's just which offense is more efficient. And I think the Titans offense is going to be more consistently efficient more often.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think the Bengals are a great story, and I think that their Super Bowl window is definitely beginning to open with the development of how good their offense is, but they're just not there yet. And I think the Titans are a little bit closer to that window. I expect to see the Titans in the AFC Championship. Would not be surprised if the Bengals made it though. I do want to put that out.
It would not be world ending. It would not be the most surprising thing. I think it would be the biggest upset of this round, but I don't think that it would be, super surprising.
So one game that you probably do have as a surprising upset, that would be San Francisco at Green Bay. Do you want to set it up? Green Bay is a 5.5 favorite, over under 47. I'm assuming you have the Packers, and I'm going to guess beating the spread.
I do, and I just want to throw this out here. I've kind of been keeping up with the sports media all week, and everybody is talking about this game like the Niners are a 50,000-point favorite. Can we just clear up one thing, please? Yes, the Niners upset the Cowboys, but in order to barely win this game, they needed the Cowboys to have 14 penalties, no offense until the fourth quarter, and a terribly executed draw play all in the same game, all to win by barely a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I mean, if that is what you need to beat a team that, frankly, the Cowboys are a worse team than the Packers. They just are. If you need all that to beat a worse team than the team you're about to play, you better pray that something goes right for you. in the upcoming week, I'm not worried about the Packers game. Maybe the offense comes out a little slow. That seems to be something that happens after bye weeks for us. I will say that. But I can pretty much guarantee that our offense is going to heat up before the fourth quarter. I can guarantee we won't have 14 penalties, and we are not going to call a stupid draw play with a 37-year-old quarterback. That's not going to happen. I'm going to cite it again, the Pat McAfee show. Rodgers actually said on that show, because they asked him, like, Aaron, what happens if LaFleur calls that play? And Aaron said, go ahead, LaFleur, call that play, see what happens. He pretty much just said, I will audible that. I do not care who's calling it. I'm going to audible that. So, again, we keep hearing the 49ers like they're the favorite. Let's not forget that they're playing the best team in football in one of the hardest places to play, and Jimmy G has never played a game below 40 degrees. Tomorrow, it will likely be negative on game day. I think officially the real feel is going to be -4.
Yeah, wear your scuba suit if you're.
Oh, yeah.
That's a Brady reference. But wear your scuba suits. So Tony's not worried about the Packers, but I definitely am. I am going to take the Packers, but I actually have the 49ers covering on this one because I think that the 49ers are, again, kind of like with the Cowboys, the worst possible matchup that the Packers could have gotten in the second round because, right, they would have had to have played the lowest seed. So they could have gotten the Rams, the Cardinals, the 49ers, or the Eagles. I have a feeling that they probably would have taken basically everybody else before they took the 49ers.
Yeah.
So the 49ers do rank in the 15th. The Packers rush defense is actually worst in the NFL, one of the worst, I should say, ranking 28th by DVOA. They do rank 15th in the pass. I'll give them credit. So that will give Jimmy G problems, but who doesn't? I think Jimmy G throwing to an open receiver, Jimmy G might have some problems from time to time. But the case for the 49ers, to me, rests on the merit of their rushing defense, rushing attack, which is top 5 in the NFL. Their passing game is also ranked 5th by DVOA. I'm not sure I buy that one as much, but they're also on the 49ers are also on the road, so I expect their attack to look a lot worse. Defensively speaking, the 49ers rank 2nd against the rush, but 16th against the pass, which again is why I think the Packers are going to be able to win. I think that they can attack the air a lot better than they can the ground. It depends on how well who's healthy for the Packers offensive line and how well the 49ers can get pressure, with the fewest amount of rushers possible. The Packers are the second best passing offense in the league and rank in 8th in rushing. So I would be really excited because I think that this game is coming down to who wins in the trenches, specifically on when the Packers have the ball. That's going to be the biggest matchup for me because I feel pretty confident that the 49ers are going to be able to run it. So to me, the big point of emphasis will be to see how the Green Bay Packers look coming out in the first drive and how their offensive line is holding up. So, like I said, I do expect the Packers to win, but I expect their rushing defense to be a liability, and their special teams, I'm waiting for it to pop up pretty much all season.
I don't know about that, though, and here's why. Because the Packers have Bakhtiari is playing again. Randall Cobb's coming back from his core surgery. Mm-hmm. Zadarius Smith is coming back, who was our leading sack person last year, and he was extremely important for us in the run game. And the surprise of surprises, Whitney Merciless is coming back from his torn bicep from earlier in the season. We brought him in as a linebacker primarily to be the guy to meet the running back in the middle and stop the run. With 4 major starters coming back, I still think this team would win without them, but I'm pretty sure the last guy that we have that's not coming back that we kind of expected to come back, I don't believe Jair Alexander's coming back. And that one, if I had to pick a guy to not come back against this team, I think I'd pick him just because it's Jimmy G. So I'm not super worried about it. And I trust our secondary pretty well after the past couple weeks and seeing what they've done. So I am fairly confident that we can pull it off even without these guys. But with them back, I do think Rodgers is going to have enough time. Nobody's going to be able to cover Devontae. If somebody somehow covers Devontae in any given play, we now have Randall Cobb who's coming back. He's going to be in the slot. He'll be an easy out. I don't think the Niners can stop A.J. Dillon, to be totally honest with you. I think he's a power runner, and he's going to be able to push through them. Aaron Jones is elusive and a pass catcher.
So looking at the rush defense rankings on Football Outsiders, Dallas ranks significantly better than the Green Bay Packers do. As I mentioned, the Green Bay Packers are 28th, whereas Dallas ranks 16th, so that is a significant difference. The 49ers still put up 169 yards and outpossessed solely because of the running game. I believe they outpossessed the Cowboys by about 3 or 4 minutes. So I feel like you're brushing that one aside a little bit too much. But let's move to the next game because we still got 2 more to go. Next one will be Tampa Bay and the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are a 2.5-point underdog on the road, and the over/under is 48. I picked the Rams to win in the offseason, and I see absolutely no reason to shy away from that now that they have to go to a very injured Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So by DVOA, Tampa Bay is the best in passing, and it's not close. The next best team are the Packers. They're in second. The difference between Tampa Bay and Green Bay is the same as the difference between Green Bay and the 7th best passing offense by DVOA. So Tampa Bay should be a very good on paper passing team, but they're incredibly injured. They don't have nearly the amount of weapons that they used to when that DVOA was getting established. So I am going to say that their offense is not going to be as good. In rushing, though, Tampa Bay still ranks 4th, but we do know that their offensive line is a little bit banged up, so that's also problematic. The Rams rank 6th against the pass and 5th against the rush, so they are still a very good defensive team. Not as good as they were last year, where they were one of the best defenses in football, but they're still a very good defensive team. The Rams offense is then in 7th in passing and 12th in rushing, but also has Cam Akers returning, I believe. So they should be even better at running the football. Tampa Bay ranks 10th against the pass and 12th against the rush. So it's going to be close, but because of injury, the Rams are going to beat Tampa. That and the Rams also blew out Tampa earlier in the season, so I feel pretty confident that they can do it again.
I'm also going to take the Rams here. I think that Stafford just had a good game, his first real good game of the past couple weeks. I think the Bucs looked a little bit underwhelming against the Eagles, honestly. Yes, they jumped out to a 31-0 lead. I'll say that. Like, that was awesome. But this is a 4-quarter game. And the Eagles did come back and put up 15 on them in the end of the game. So it was, a lot closer than maybe it should have been. But at this point in the playoffs, it's extremely important that you play all 4 quarters. We just saw that with the Niners-Cowboys game. Niners pretty much had the game. They didn't play pretty much the last quarter. It felt like the Cowboys were able to almost come back and flip that game around. This is the playoffs. You play 60 minutes until that clock hits triple zeros, and you don't stop even with the second left. So if you're going to let up against, a team like the Eagles, and you're going to let them put up 15 on you, if you let up against a team like the Rams, that might flip the game around. So I think I'm going to take the Rams. I don't think they're ever going to drop that far behind. I don't think they're going to necessarily be ahead the whole time, but I do think they end up pulling away.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think it'll be a close one, but I do have, obviously, Tampa Bay beating the spread because I have them winning straight up. All right, let's move on to the last one before we get you out of here for the weekend. So the last game is Buffalo at Kansas City. This is a rematch of earlier in the season. This is kind of a theme that we've seen, I believe, with everybody but the Bengals and Tennessee. I don't recall if they played earlier in the season. But the last time these two teams played, Buffalo blew out Kansas City, and was kind of when everybody was super excited about the Bills as being maybe the best team in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, they've cooled off, and the Chiefs have gotten a lot better, and that results in the Chiefs being favored by 2 points, which I feel is a little bit crazy. So I'm taking the Bills here. So the Bills' offense, they rank 13th in passing and 9th in rushing, which is sort of surprising considering how dominant the Bills have looked throughout the season. But that is kind of what DVOA does, right? It throws out not throws out, but adjusts for quality of opponent. But Kansas City ranks 23rd against the pass and 20th against the rush. So I'm giving that side of the ball the advantage to the Bills. I mean, if the Steelers put up 21 points on you, maybe a little bit of concern. On the flip side of the ball, the Chiefs rank 3rd in passing and 10th in rushing, so they are going to have a good offense despite the rocky start. But Buffalo has a great defense to match. They actually rank 1st against the pass and 11th against the rush. So after the performance we saw from the Bills where if Josh Allen can play like 80% of whatever was going on last weekend, that Josh Allen, I'm giving this to the Bills.
This is a tough one, and I think this might be the toughest pick of the weekend for me. I'm going to take Kansas City, though. Yes, the Bills just absolutely thrashed the Patriots, and Josh Allen did have an amazing career day, but I doubt that happens again, and the Chiefs are a little bit of a different animal. I think the Chiefs have improved in all areas since, the beginning of the season, and I don't think that it's a blowout or anything. I do think that it's kind of like my earlier analyzation of the Bills-Patriots, where I thought that no matter who wins, it's going to be close. Obviously, that was wrong, but I do think that this one's going to be, I think the Chiefs win marginally. I think it's a narrow victory, but I can see either team here. I'm going to stick with the Chiefs, though, but I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's fireworks. I think it's a high-scoring game, but unlike the Bills-Patriots game, I think both teams put up a lot of points.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't see this one being a blowout. I just do give it to the Bills, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that the Bills are an underdog is kind of crazy to me. All right, so before we get out of here, let's pick the day that we think is going to be better, because Saturday has Bengals, Titans, and then 49ers, Packers, and Sunday then has Rams, Buccaneers, and Bills, Chiefs. I think Sunday is infinitely better, and maybe that's a strong take, but I think Sunday is so much better.
I think Saturday is going to be better just because the games are, the seeds are farther apart. I feel like there's going to be an upset somewhere. I picked both favorites. I picked Titans, Packers to win both times. But I just have a feeling like it feels like the number one seeds against each other rarely make it to the Super Bowl together. It has happened. It's happened pretty recently. I think just a couple years ago it happened. But it doesn't happen all that much, and it's really, really tough to do. So I feel like a 1 and a 6 seed and a 1 and a 4 seed, it's just exciting because, the 4 and the 6 seeds are going to be playing, gloves off. They're not going to be holding anything back. The 1 seeds, what if one of them might get a little complacent here or there? So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be more exciting. No, I think if anything, it's the Titans. But I do think that, you can't go wrong with either day. Come on.
I think Sunday is better because it just has the more marquee matchups, if you will, like the Rams, the Rams and the Buccaneers. Like that's super exciting. We've been saying like all season that could be an NFC Championship matchup when we get it in the divisional round. Same with Bills and Chiefs. That's another one, like AFC Championship, and it's a divisional game. So I don't think you can go wrong with either day. I expect both days to be good football and a much-needed improvement over what was kind of a bummer wildcard round, which makes me question the merit of having a 7th team. Like, if that's what the 7 seeds look like, we're really sure we want to have them. But yeah, I think Sunday will be a little bit better because it is the 2 higher seeds. They're less further apart because, as we saw last time, when the teams are farther apart in the seeding, it tends to be a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, but then it's, the upset alert's not quite there. Like, if the 3 seed upsets the 2 seed, that's not really an upset. Like, if the 4 seed upsets the 2 seed, that's a little bit of an upset, not that much. But like Niners, Packers, if the 6 seed upsets the 1 seed to make it to the NFC Championship, that's exciting. And even with the 4 seed and the 1 seed, like that's awesome. Maybe 1 seeds end up blowing them both out. Maybe the 4 and the 6 win. Who knows? But it's just, I don't know. There's that factor there of, the upset could be awesome. Yeah.
So a ticket to Green Bay is $100. Are you gonna go? You should go.
I'm not gonna lie. I've been thinking about it.
You should try. It's $100, and you can, you can watch the 49ers.
Yeah, but I got to get out there tomorrow. I'm not getting a flight out there, and I don't have my car.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That is a bit of an obstacle.
I wish so. That would be awesome.
All right, make plans for the NFC Championship because you can watch them lose to the Buccaneers in back-to-back seasons in Lambeau.
Tom, do you want to see if we can find tickets to the Panthers playoff?
Yeah, that's really funny. I hope you lose in the NFC playoffs. 8-0 at home is great until you choke it to the Niners.
No, it's not going to happen.
All right, I'm going to leave you with that thought. Have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy some football. We'll see you back here Friday.
See you guys.